Bobby Broyles and Tim McDonald here with a very exciting edition of This Week in CAA Football presented by Geico. Tim, we've got several Week 7 headlines to get to, but the biggest news came from Sunday's announcement that our friends Kirk Herbstreit, Lee Corso, and the ESPN College Game Day gang is headed to Harrisonburg this weekend for James Madison versus Richmond. What an opportunity to showcase CAA football to the nation.
You know, all these lead into the year, and I couldn't say it better myself, you know, a historic day for FCS football, but also for CAA football. Never had an opportunity like this. Game day, the mecca of college football. Millions of people tune into this every weekend. What are they going to be looking at? I know the whole show is not going to be focused around JMU and Richmond, but it's so cool to have the backdrop there at Madison. You know, this is the 8th time all-time that game day has gone to a non-FBS traditional house. JMU, I mean, if you're not excited and you're a fan and you're not out there, we're going to be angry.
Exactly.
I mean, you got to be there. Richmond fans, too. It's not a long drive.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a great opportunity to showcase. And not only that, it's a sexy matchup, too.
It is.
You got two great teams, the two undefeated teams in CAA football right now. You look at some of the past FCS matchups. We've seen North Dakota State have it a couple of times, Amherst and Williams, Yale and Harvard. But again, a couple of little interesting notes here. Lee Fitting, the producer for Game Days in 1996 JMU grad. Then you have Todd McShay, who's also sometimes on game day from time to time, in 1999 Richmond grad. And Sam Ponder, formerly Sam Steele, was on the Liberty Flame Sports Network when Danny Rocco, the head coach of the Richmond Spiders, was the coach at Richmond. So a lot of overlying themes. But again, what an opportunity for the conference.
Yeah.
I know you want me to break into it, Bob. But
we can keep going.
I'll break into it. Other things did happen around the league. Okay, we can notice that too. William Mary, what a game for the Tribe. You know, just outplayed UNH in the second half. UNH had some plays, didn't make the plays when they needed to. Anderson again gets it done, Bob. Over 170 yards, 2 touchdowns. We said the ground game was going to be huge. William Mary proved that. And then you look at Towson, absolutely huge win. You know, no one is finding it easy to win at Stony Brook, and Towson down 14-0 in that game, comes back. Connor Frazier shows some guts, got hurt, got knocked up, came back in the game. Towson scores late and wins a huge contest. Richmond, again, takes care of on the road, 37-12 at Rhodey. And then, of course, JMU, which ultimately set up this game day experience, handles Elon on the road 51-0. Again, don't forget about Villanova, too. 2-1 in CAA play right now. Got a huge win last week as well.
Yes, it did.
Zach Bednarczyk looked a lot better passing the ball. Another huge week for the league, but right now all eyes have to be in Harrisonburg.
Indeed. Let's get right to Saturday's big matchup in Harrisonburg, like you said, Tim. The day gets started with College Game Day on the JMU Quad from 9 to noon on ESPN. And then at 3:30 on Comcast Sportsnet and CA.TV, we'll have the game as the Dukes battle Richmond.
Wait, down to the quad and to the gymnasium.
To the quad, to the gymnasium, exactly.
Everybody's doing it.
Everyone's going to be
there. If you're a JMU fan and a Richmond fan, like I said, I can't stress enough, I need to see a CAA football sign. I need to see some type of creative sign. This atmosphere, they're expecting thousands of people in the quad. It needs to be there for not only in order to have a good show, but to showcase the nation what CAA football is all about. Again, I talked about a sexy matchup. The two unbeatens in CAA football, we've talked about this matchup looming down the stretch. It's the offensive game. It's an offensive showcase right now. You look at Vad Lee. What else can you say that the job that he's done as a quarterback this year? 6th in efficiency in the FCS, 19 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 5 rushing touchdowns. Then we forget, Kyle Lauletta has also put together a nice little season himself. 11th in the FCS in efficiency, 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Hey, also has 4 rushing touchdowns as well, so don't overlook him. But again, James Madison's running back duo, and I'm counting Vad Lee as a running back, right? Can you allow me to do that?
You can do that.
Over 2,000 rush yards, 23 touchdowns combined on the ground this season. Richmond has to stop JMU somehow, especially if JMU, which leads the nation in first downs, can get a lot of first downs. That's going to be a huge key. But again, for Richmond, Seth Fisher and Jacoby Green, 2 guys who oftentimes get overlooked just because a lot of times Richmond hasn't had to beat teams on the ground. 720 yards combined, 10 touchdowns combined. Each average 5 yards or better per more on each carry. Brown and Diggs, the wide receivers for Richmond, need to step up. Taylor Reynolds is one of the best cornerbacks in the FCS and in CAA football. I'm interested to see where JMU matches up Taylor Reynolds, either against Diggs or Brown. Those are the 2 best receivers in CAA football, and Richmond has that advantage this week. But again, as our friend this week, Lee Corso, says, not so fast, Bobby. Look at Richmond's pass defense. 5th in CAA football, 197.4 yards per game. Tied for the lead also with 9 interceptions. That's going to be key. James Madison is going to expect to get some big plays, especially playing at home in front of their crowd. How about JMU's rush D? Not so fast, my friend, again. 128 yards per game, 4th in CAA football. 120 yards or less in its last 3 games. So many storylines, game day.
Yep.
People are asking, is that going to be a factor for JMU? Are they going to be thinking about ESPN? Am I going to get, am I going to get shiny on prime time?
Yeah,
I don't know.
look good.
And then you got
right?
Richmond here saying, hey, we got to play this game too.
Yep.
A huge matchup for both teams moving forward in CAA football play and in FCS play moving forward in general.
And there was enough storylines already. It's homecoming at JMU. The game is already sold out. I believe you only can go to StubHub to get tickets at this point.
I'm going to get there somehow, I'll tell you that.
Exactly. Earlier on Saturday on Fox College Sports, Stony Brook visits Maine at 12:30. Both teams looking to get back on the winning track here, Tim.
Yeah, let's come back to earth a little bit here.
Yeah,
We got
exactly.
two teams. Stony Brook, like I mentioned, up 14-0 last week versus Towson. Then kind of things fell apart. They give up a huge fumble that turned into a 65-yard turn. That game too, if you're watching that contest, Stony Brook had a 24-yard field goal with a couple minutes left and missed it. Then Towson gets the ball, marches down the field. Stony Brook struggled again. 13 tackles for loss allowed last week, and you feel bad too because Stony Brook set a new attendance record last week, 12,177 fans at that game. Here you go to Maine, another tough one, 21-10 loss at home to Yale in non-conference play. Maine finishes the season in non-conference play 0-3. Still, the Black Bears are 2-1 in league play. Stony Brook is 1-3. Just two teams right now. Offensively, they need to find an answer, and it's going to come through quarterback play. Dan Collins last week for Maine threw 2 picks. We've heard from Coach Cosgrove at Maine that we're going to see Drew Belcher play this week if Collins struggles again. And for Stony Brook, the run game got a little bit better, but still, we knew it was going to be a struggle without Stacey Bedell. Let's remember, Stony Brook's schedule remaining. Elon, Howard, Albany, and at Rhode Island sandwiched in between there. Much more manageable schedule down the stretch for Stony Brook compared to Maine. But again, both teams right now desperately need a win.
In another battle of two teams looking to bounce back, Delaware coming off a bye welcomes New Hampshire and Newark at 3:30. The first regular season road game at UD for UNH since 2006.
Where'd you get that one, Bob? I like that.
I don't know. They put that in the prompter for me this week.
A lot of interesting story notes coming into this one. Since 1986, New Hampshire has played at Delaware 9 times and actually won 6 of those games. But like you mentioned, it hasn't happened in such a long time.
Yep.
The last time UNH played at Delaware was a playoff loss in 2010. The last time they played in the regular season, like you said, was 2006. So again, Delaware right now is kind of sitting in the weeds right now. Feeling bad about themselves 2 weeks ago after a 20-0 loss at Rhodey. Then you have UNH coming to this one. Can you call a road loss at William & Mary bad? No, but it's still tough to take for this team. Now they're 3-3 on the season. Dalton Crossan, Bob, over 100 yards rushing for the second straight week. Right now is the offensive weapon for New Hampshire. Expect him to get a lot of touches. Expect New Hampshire to need some guys to step up with Goldrich back. Goldrich still didn't look like 100% last week.
No.
Played a little bit better in the second half. But again, Delaware, some interesting numbers. Number 2 rushing offense in CAA football, 244 yards per game. New Hampshire, number 11 rush defense. So we know what's going to happen in this game.
Yep.
We know Delaware's going to try to run the ball and make UNH stop the run. On the other hand, UNH, we know they're going to try to move the ball through the air and get Goldrich and some playmakers going. A lot of interesting matchups, too. If I may just add this in lastly, Ryan Carty, the offensive coordinator for New Hampshire, played at Delaware. Delaware's offensive coordinator, Sean Devine, was the offensive coordinator at New Hampshire for a very long time. A lot of overturn, a lot of game notes coming into this one. Should be a really interesting matchup at 3:30 in a game that a lot of people are probably going to overlook.
Indeed, it should be a great one indeed. Also at 3:30, a late season non-conference matchup with Red Hot William & Mary playing host to Hampton out of the MEAC. This game can be seen live on CA.TV.
We called this a trap game in past years, but right now I think William & Mary can't afford to look ahead. I know JMU is coming up on that schedule, and I know. But you think of a Jamie Laycock team, and I know we praise this all the time, but Tribe football gets it done in non-conference play, no matter who the opponent is. I know they have that UVA loss earlier this year, but I think coming home, only the 3rd home game this season. Hampton's the team right now. Don't get me wrong, a good team, 2 straight wins, 4-3 overall. David Watkins, the transfer from Virginia, is the quarterback for them. But still, I think they can't afford to look ahead. Something we didn't mention at all. So Luke Rhodes last week versus New Hampshire didn't play much in the second half. We don't know how severe a knee injury it looked to be. It actually is. But his backup, Zach Fetters, actually had an interception, played extremely well. I said it to you, Bob. I've said this all season long. You can't punt without thinking about where in the field DeAndre Houston Carson is. He had a punt block last week, also returned a muffed punt, 10 yards. Absolutely huge. The CAA football, special teams player of the week. He is also added to the FCS defensive player watch list this week for national level. An absolutely huge playmaker. I think William & Mary's defense right now is playing high, and I think William & Mary at home versus Hampton is able to get it done.
Indeed, William & Mary shouldn't sleep on Hampton. We already saw Hampton almost upset Richmond earlier in the season. Week 8 concludes with a good one in Maryland as the Towson Tigers host Villanova on the American Sports Network and CAA.TV at 7. Both teams riding high after last week. Tim.
Absolutely huge game. You can't overlook this one at all because, you think about that Towson team, Bob. A year ago, Towson goes 14 down nothing at Stony Brook, and we would have said, that it's too much for them to overcome. Last week, they come back from that 14-hole deficit, get it done. We see Connor Frazier come back, didn't have the greatest game, but got it done for his team when it needed in that final drive. Darius Victor had 2 huge rushing touchdowns, including a late one that sealed the deal. You think about Nova, and you think about where they're at on the national level, and a lot of people right now, 3-3 overall, still slowly nationally ranked. It's really interesting to me because I called out Bednarchik last week on the show for his passing, and it needed to improve, and it did. 12 of 12 passing last week, 2 touchdowns. Must have been listening.
The perfect game.
Javon White also had a huge game for Villanova, rushing for 124 yards. A really interesting matchup at Towson. I mean, we know it's a tough place to play for Villanova. Both of these teams down the stretch, it's not like one of their schedules is easier than the other because they still got a long way to go. But a win moving forward for either of these squads is going to be absolutely enormous. Towson's defense, I think, is the key right now in this one. They played like they were angry last week at Stony Brook. Really forced Stony Brook to become one-dimensional and pass the ball. I think Towson's defense has the edge, but Villanova's offense is slowly growing under Bednarchik.
CAFootball.com, as always, has links to watch the live streams and live stats from every Week 8 game. And as a reminder, CA.TV will have a live simulcast of CSN's broadcast of Richmond at JMU and ASN's coverage of Towson versus Villanova.
What a huge weekend and a huge week it's already been for us on social media. We're all over Twitter. We're on Snapchat and Instagram. We're going to be covering game day from Harrisonburg Live, and you can find us on all of those mediums by searching CAA Football as well as using our hashtag CAAFB. I said it again. I said it before. Someone better have a CA Football hashtag sign, or I'm going to run out there and get it myself.
Yes.
I don't know. I might crash the stage. We'll see.
Exactly.
Someone has to show up with CA sign, please.
As long as I see you with one of those orange Home Depot hats as well.
It's already in my closet.
Good. Our on-campus crew was at UAlbany this past Saturday. You can check out the sights, sounds, and highlights from the Great Danes contest versus Villanova now on our Everyday Saturday blog, cafootball.wordpress.com. And don't miss our latest Going Deep feature on a very special Great Danes team captain Thursday on cafootball.com.
And hats off to Eric and Mike. Our crew went up to Albany, and another phenomenal story highlighting something that UAlbany has done so special off the field. So many times on these on-campus trips, I should say, it's just nice to get on campus and find out what's going on off the field, not just football 24/7. Bob, but what else you got for me for JMU game day? Are you going to be there?
We're still waiting. We're on hold. We've been put on hold, but
I do hear you have a good guest for the podcast.
We do. CA Football's Yak podcast also returns Thursday. We'll dive deeper into the Week 8 matchup and talk with college game day producer Lee Fitting. He's also a JMU alum. I wonder if that kind of played a little part in all this. But other than that, that's it from us today. We'll see you again right here next week for another episode of This Week in CA Football presented by Geico. Until then, get those signs ready for game day, Tim.
Let's go.